Hello and welcome to World Literature, pre-modern masterpieces of the world. They just changed the name on me. Sorry about that. Any hoodle. Um, Over the next 8 weeks, then what you and I and all of your classmates are going to be doing is reading work that covers arguably 4,500 years, more realistically, probably 2,500 years based on the versions we're using of literature, of some of the best out there. Um, I'm always in an interesting spot whenever I'm trying to figure out what kind of work I'm going to be pulling from our textbooks, which, by the way, is right here. Volume 1, shorter 4th edition Norton Anthology of World Literature should have this dude on the front. Almost all of our readings are coming out of there. The ones that aren't, I already have uploaded onto Canvas for you. Um, we are going to be reading some of the greats that have come from that time, and this class does involve a lot of reading. I'm just warning you of that right now. 200-ish pages a week is not unrealistic, plus some smaller assignments throughout. And what we're going to be doing in order to help make more sense of that, I'm going to have some very basic comprehension quizzes uploaded for you guys. We're going to have some discussion boards where you can talk with each other and with me through the various works that we're doing. And there's going to be a short writing assignment associated with most of our weeks for this semester. And we're going to be using primarily two different schools of literary theory in order to get through all of that. Literary theory may sound scary if you've not been exposed to the phrase before. I promise you, you've been exposed to the actual concept before, even if you've never heard the phrase. Literary theory is just a set of questions that we can use to understand more about a certain area of a given text. There are dozens of literary theories out there, ranging from new critical theory, which I'm guessing you guys were exposed to in high school, which says what kind of what kind of a text is this? What are the themes? What are the motifs? Um, Things like that. We will be using a little bit of new critical theory in here, but it's not my favorite. The only thing that it really adds for me is it was one of the first ones to say, let's analyze this text as its own world. And we will be using that for some of our work. Primarily, the two texts or the two theories that we're going to be using are one, New Historicism. New Historicism says, put simply, nothing is created in a vacuum and nothing is consumed in a vacuum. There is a world that surrounded a given text, that it was created either influenced by or in response to. And you, as a reader, are also reading it in part of a greater world context. They may or may not be the same for the things that we're looking at. None of them are going to be the same because we are a minimum of 400 years removed from the creation of any of these. Our world has changed a lot in the last 400 years. Among other things, none of these are American texts. And the vast majority of you in this class are at least pretty familiar with American culture, even if you didn't grow up in it. I'm sure there are going to be a few people in here who, like, this is your first year in the United States, but the vast majority of you are going to have a reasonable grounding in American culture. And that's not the culture that created these. So we're going to be using that to look at what their world was like and how that compares to what our world was like, and how some of these lessons might be applicable and how we might read them differently now. That's new historical literary theory. The second one that we're going to be using, and this is one of my personal favorites that I go to time and time again as a folklorist, is American pragmatic literary theory. And the idea of American pragmatic literary theory is, what is the value of this text to the reader? Why would the reader be reading this thing? Why would given that they only have 24 hours in a day? Why would they spend time with this? Why should you spend time with it? Even if I weren't making you do it and holding your time hostage for points in this class and you're actually paying me to do that. So why would you do that to yourself? I guess would be the better question there. Um, so those are going to be kind of the two sets of questions that we're dealing with a lot throughout this semester. There are going to be a couple of weeks where we're dealing with slightly different things. I'm going to introduce those whenever we get to them. But for the majority of our course, those are going to be the two kind of overriding theories we're working with is American pragmatism and new historicism. You may have caught in there. I did say I am a folklorist. Yes, I am an English teacher. I primarily teach composition here at Lindenwood and for a couple of other schools. Um, but I do also teach literature. And as far as I know, I'm only one of one or two folklorists or mythologists that we have on staff here at Lindenwood, which is a very enviable position to be in because that means that I get to teach most of our um, Greek mythology and Roman mythology and classes like that. I've I've got a couple of them that I really enjoy working with. Um, my actual area of study, whenever I have time, um, doing stuff off on my own, is I primarily study urban legends. So all of those stories about like man door, hook hand, car door. That's me. Hi. Specifically, I actually specialize in uh, urban legends that involve severed hands. So I spend a lot of time looking at like disability study and madness study as well, which are two other sets of literary theories that I bring into this class a little bit, but not too terribly often, just because it doesn't really relate all that much to our work that we're doing here. Um, but we in folklore also tend to use a lot of American pragmatism because we're trying to figure out why people tell these stories or why these stories stop being told for a while or they evolve into different forms and things like that. You will notice in a lot of the videos throughout our course that I am going to be wearing this exact same outfit because I'm recording these back to back. Um, did not get a huge amount of warning about needing to record this many videos. So for those of you who have already jumped in our course a little bit early, you'll notice that they're actually popping up throughout on the weekend before the course starts. If you see me wearing something different, it's because I realized I needed to change something later down the road. So um, I am very easy to get in touch with. I basically live on my computer. For those of you who are at Lindenwood, I may or may not be teaching on campus this semester. I do a lot of online work. Um, my other two schools that I work for are online only. Um, most semesters, I'm actually teaching between 18 and 20 classes a year. 8 classes during the spring and fall semesters most of the time, and then between 2 and 4 over the summer, which means that I'm actually teaching about twice as much as a lot of your like major professors are. Standard workload for a professor is only about 4 classes per semester, and then 1 or 2 over the summer. And I do that because I think this is important. I love to teach. Um, I think that there's a lot of value in the composition classes that I teach and learning how to think critically, read critically, and write clearly. For this one, obviously, the reading part is going to be the biggest bit of it. Um, Simply because any problem that a person has ever had, somebody has probably had a similar problem somewhere along the way. We're ending our semester with Hamlet, which Shakespeare lived through the plague, man. All of us who are frustrated about being stuck inside and not knowing who's safe and who's not safe. Shakespeare knew, brother. He knew. He knew what was up. Um, and because we're working with so much here, then there are going to be a lot of problems that are very familiar. Um, with that being said, I do feel the need to at least explain, if not justify, some of the choices that I've made of the things that I am pulling from this book. You will notice as you're going through our syllabus that most of our readings were written by dudes. A lot of them were written by white dudes. Um, that is by no means the best literature that is out there. It is a lot of the literature that was out there due to sexist, colonial, patriarchal structures that existed for a lot of world's history. Um, but it is not by any stretch of the means all of it. Certainly not exclusively the best. The reason that I am doing that is because I know that there are going to be a lot of you who are taking this class for your teaching certification, um, either at the elementary, middle, or high school level, and particularly the high school praxis exam that you have to take here in Missouri uses a lot of the text that I'm having you guys read in here, and I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if I weren't at least acknowledging that that's one of the reasons that you guys are here. There's a lot of other great stuff in this book. I encourage you, if you have time, to go through and read some of it. I know it's kind of an expensive book. I would actually recommend holding on to it. I have so many anthologies of world literature that I've saved over the years that I just like to flip through. Um, one of my personal favorites, I just got the updated copy a few weeks ago, Thornton Shakespeare. Um, but there are plenty of others that are available as well. This is going to be probably the longest video that you have to watch for this class. I'm trying to keep most of the others 10 minutes or less, but I did just have a lot of ground to cover, and I did want to make sure that I actually covered it all. I don't know if you've picked up on this from the way that I'm communicating right now, but I'm a little bit easily distracted. So I'm trying to stay focused and make sure that I'm getting everything across. So anyway, that's me down underneath all of this. And this is going to be the same format for all of our welcome pages for this semester. We're going to have one every week. Then you will see everything that we're working on throughout the course of this week. And you can follow this along in module form by just booping over to the next button. If you ever get lost, you can always go back, or you can just look at the modules whole cloth. I'm pretty sure I set it up in such a way that you can see all of them, unless one of my instructional designers went through and changed it afterward, which they do sometimes. I don't fault them. I just also don't always notice whenever they do it. Anyway, that's me. Looking forward to having a great next 8 weeks with you guys.